The spice must flow. Denis Villeneuve's epic Dune saga is nearing its spectacular conclusion. In this preview, we give you all the details on this mega project, what the novel is about, the current status of filming, and what comes next after the release. But one thing is already certain: Dune 3 will be more intense, more personal, and darker than ever before. The story is based on Frank Herbert's novel Dune Messiah and is set 12 years after Paul Atreides' rise to power on Arrakis. Paul's influence now spans the entire universe. He sits on the throne of Arrakis as emperor and rules with near-divine authority. At the same time, the Freemen have waged a brutal jihad across the universe in the name of their Messiah, resulting in the deaths of billions. The tone of the book differs greatly from the story told so far. Instead of an epic hero's journey, Herbert presents a tragic tale filled with political intrigue, moral conflict, and personal sacrifice. In fact, the author never intended Paul to be seen as a shining hero. Yet even in the 1960s, many readers interpreted the story differently. The same thing has happened with Villeneuve's recent Dune films. Some viewers see the narrative as a simple battle of good versus evil. The sequel, however, seeks to make it abundantly clear what dangers lie in the blind worship of a leader. One of the central aspects of Part 3 is Paul's ability to see into the future. He sees countless possible outcomes, but almost all of them lead to catastrophe. Only a single course of action seems capable of securing humanity's survival, the so-called Golden Path. However, this path demands enormous sacrifices and forces Paul to make decisions that are almost unbearable for him. The public reveres him as a divine figure, yet he himself knows that his path is anything but heroic. But there is also resistance to his plans. Many of the universe's most powerful factions are secretly plotting to overthrow him. Their goal is to prevent the Golden Path and seize Paul's power for themselves. To achieve this, they devise a diabolical conspiracy in which Paul's past and his love for his friends play an important role. But we don't want to give too much away here due to spoilers. Paul's relationship with Chani also draws him into a terrible conflict between his personal desires and his duty as the proclaimed savior of humanity. At least, that is how it unfolds in the novel. Denis Villeneuve, however, already deviated from this in the second movie. There, Chani leaves Paul at the end and returns to the desert. As a result, the fate of their relationship is less clear than in the book, where she never leaves his side. What this means for the new film remains an exciting question. Please note, if you don't want to hear any more details about the story, now is the time to skip ahead to the next section. At this point, we will be going into more detail about the further plot of the book, including major spoilers. The conspiracy against Paul ultimately escalates into an assassination attempt. His enemies detonate an atomic weapon, which causes Paul to go blind. Thanks to his visions, however, he continues to see everything. Spiritually and emotionally, though, he is more isolated from his fellow human beings than ever before. Shortly afterwards, Chani and Paul's children are born. Contrary to expectations, they are twins, Leto II and Ghanima. Both possess extraordinary abilities and will play a decisive role in the future of humanity. But the birth claims Chani's life, just as Paul had foreseen. This loss finally breaks him. He realizes that there is no turning back and that his children are the key to humanity's survival. Following Freeman tradition, he walks alone into the desert. The twins are raised by Stilgar's wife and Irulan. The jihad comes to a halt, while Paul's sister Aliyah rules the universe as regent. Unsurprisingly, the main cast is returning for Dune 3. Timothée Chalamet reprises his role as Paul Atreides, Zendaya returns as Chani, and Florence Pugh takes on the role of Irulan. We are particularly excited to see Paul's new look. Timothée Chalamet has shaved his head for the role this time around. We are also really looking forward to seeing Anya Taylor-Joy. She made a brief appearance in Part 2 and plays Paul's sister Aliyah. A particularly interesting new addition is Robert Pattinson as Scytale, a so-called face dancer. Through genetic manipulation, he can transform into other people and plays a prominent role in the conspiracy against Paul. Anyone unfamiliar with the book may wonder what Jason Momoa is doing in the cast. After all, his character has already died. But we don't want to give away what that's all about just yet. His 16-year-old son, Nakoa Wolf Momoa, is also part of the cast, playing Paul's son Leto II. Ghanima, in turn, is portrayed by Ida Brooke. This suggests another deviation from the book, in which the children have only just been born. A real surprise is the return of Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica. She hardly features at all in the novel. There, she returns to Caladan, the ancestral home of the Atreides. Filming for Dune 3 began in July in Budapest, where the studio shots for the first two films had already been made. For the desert landscapes, the team once again traveled to the United Arab Emirates and Jordan. The intense heat reportedly posed a considerable challenge. Robert Pattinson took it humorously, saying, "When I was doing Dune, it was so hot in the desert that I just couldn't question anything. I did not have a single functioning brain cell, and I was just listening to Denis." Filming has been completed since mid-November. With the release still at least a year away, the team has more than enough time for a proper post-production. A technical highlight, the movie was shot entirely in IMAX. This makes Dune 3 only the second project ever, after Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, to be filmed entirely using this high-end camera system. There has been a change behind the camera. Greig Fraser, who won an Oscar for Dune, is not returning this time. Instead, Linus Sangren is responsible for the film's cinematography. He has worked on movies such as La La Land and No Time to Die. Fortunately, the film's score remains unchanged. Hans Zimmer will once again compose the soundtrack. He also won an Oscar for Part 1. With Dune 3, the film series comes to an end under director Denis Villeneuve. He does not plan to make another Dune film. Fans of the franchise will still get new content, however. For example, the second season of Dune Prophecy, another as-yet unknown series, and, according to rumors, even a fourth feature film. This one is said to be based on Children of Dune, though with a new director. Whether this project becomes a reality will likely depend heavily on the box office performance of Dune 3. The outlook, however, is not too bad. Despite strong reviews, Part 1 fell short of expectations, earning $410 million. Part 2, on the other hand, performed surprisingly well, grossing $715 million, almost double its predecessor. So it seems that the film series is no longer an insider tip, even among mainstream audiences. As a result, there will likely be a large number of people eager to find out how the saga continues. The planned theatrical release for Dune Part 3 is December 18, 2026. Currently, this date coincides with the release of Avengers Doomsday. That would, of course, make for an epic box office showdown. However, we consider it very unlikely that the date will remain unchanged. Unlike Barbie and Oppenheimer, the target audiences for these two blockbusters are simply too similar. One of the movies will likely be rescheduled to avoid the competition. And as much as we love Dune, it probably won't be the Marvel adventure that gets moved. Hollywood insider Jeff Snyder shares this view. According to him, Dune 3 is expected to be released earlier than planned. This could mean that the blockbuster might hit theaters as early as October or November 2026. Which film would draw you to the cinema more? Many viewers found Dune a little too dry. A popcorn movie like Doomsday is definitely the lighter option. At the same time, many moviegoers and critics swear by what Villeneuve has achieved with the new adaptation of the cult novels. Did he convince you as well? Let us know in the comments.